Game looks horrendous. Yikes, god damn.
This is Clair Obscur Expedition 33, just 1 year into development. This footage you're seeing was made with the sole purpose of trying to find voice actors for the main characters. In fact,
who the fuck is
the game would literally be posting this to Reddit in order to find voice actors for their characters. And from that same Reddit post, the creator would also find a lead writer, of which also had no experience in working in games before. In fact, her previous role was an investor at a private equity company.
Oh, thank God Cat missed what we just watched. Oh, Cat, did you just get here? Yo, thank God. Oh,
my soundtrack had never written a game soundtrack before. And he was after the director of the game found him off of SoundCloud. And to put this in perspective, most AAA games like Fortnite or Call of Duty are backed by hundreds of developers across dozens of different departments.
Wait, why were you here this entire time?
How did a team that's smaller than the Call of Duty microtransaction department craft the
microtransaction department? Damn, they have 3,000 people on that team.
RPG we've seen in years.
Flying Waters. Concept of classic. Here for like 30 minutes? Oh god. You guys gotta stop lurking in my streams. I think we should shoot Homer again. I'm gonna shoot him again.
Expedition 33's journey began in late 2020, but the first concepts actually started 4 years before that.
This is like Cyberpunk.
Guillaume Broche, who was the founder of Sandbox Interactive and the director of Expedition 33, was at Ubisoft for roughly 4 years. From 2016 up until 2019, he would work on games like The Division 2 and Ghost Recon Breakpoint. After those two games shipped, he was put in a narrative lead role for a game franchise called Might and Magic. And like many of you right now, I had no idea this game franchise even existed. But apparently, the franchise is a mobile game owned by Ubisoft Shanghai, and Broche was leading the narrative for this franchise. And as you would expect,
we're probably gonna finish really fast, so I'll probably just fool around afterwards.
Designed to extract
I'm pretty sure we're gonna be done with everything in the title by like
players, Guillaume got bored with the work that he was doing on the team, and really felt like there was no impact to what he was doing. And during this time, he had ambitions that went beyond being shoehorned into a mobile gacha game. He knew that a game like Expedition 33 would never be greenlit by Ubisoft.
No.
He quit his job in order to pursue his ambition. Alongside him, Tom Guillaume,
ex-Ubisoft devs, by the way. That's so sick.
So he would also leave Ubisoft and join
I've been
the
avoiding spoilers.
team.
Yeah, definitely give it a try.
The narrative, and Tom, who had expertise on how Unreal
I still haven't even beaten the game. I don't know how it ends.
A small grassroots team would
I've done like all the side bosses and stuff.
While the director was messing around with Unreal Engine, the original prototype for Clair Obscur was supposed to be related to time. So when he had to save the project,
thank God he didn't do this. Bro, if he did this with Ubisoft, there'd be game passes
what would the project
a battle pass and shit.
The game's related to time, so maybe Hourglass. Well, Sans Fall in an Hourglass.
Even Assassin's Creed Black Flag, there's a battle pass in it. From that point on, I showed you guys the battle pass. Why can't I do that in game?
The game's internal working name would be Sandfall, even to this date. With Tom at the helm as co-founder and CTO, and Guillaume as CEO and also a co-founder, they would embark on their expedition to create a brand new world by themselves.
Yeah, that's how Assassin's Creed Black Flag is. Like, there's random quests on the map that are for the battle pass.
Now that the studio had been
I don't even know if you even have to pay for the battle pass, but even if it's just such a weird thing to have in the game.
Since Guillaume wanted this game to have a big focus on narrative, he began reaching out anywhere he could to find people who would be interested in helping the passion project evolve into something a bit more serious. He created this post on the subreddit r/record this for free, looking to cast actors for the main roles of the game, including, of course, Mayel. One of the many people who auditioned from this Reddit post was Jennifer Schvedberg-Yen. She got one of the leading roles as an actor. However, once she joined the team, it was pretty clear that her impact would be most noticed in a writer position, so she became lead writer on the game. Despite the growing teams, The co-founders and Jennifer Yen said that they wore many different hats during the game's production.
Ubisoft tries to be like Nintendo, but they don't get away with it. Like Nintendo
all
does.
Over the project.
Nintendo has so much.
The small team.
Nintendo's dedicated fan base is just too huge
on the game,
and has too much like beloved
composer at the same
titles.
The co-founders began their hunt for a composer.
It doesn't matter.
By reaching out to the most popular composers in the industry, like Hans Zimmer,
Ubisoft on their
Johnny
hand.
Paisano,
Like
Danny Elfman,
does it.
Just kidding. He began his search on SoundCloud. That's where he found Lorian Testart. And at this point, Lorian had never worked on a game before, but caught the attention of the co-founders based off the work he's done on his SoundCloud. I am not making this up. The composer of Expedition 33, one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard in a video game, had never worked on a video game soundtrack before. Oh, and actually, it wasn't SoundCloud. It was even crazier than that. One night, the director went on an obscure gaming forum with like 10 people on it, and he made a post asking if anybody would want to join his team as a composer. And out of sheer luck, Lorian Testard had also randomly found this forum for the first time, just an hour after the post was made.
Wow.
The hunt to expand the team wouldn't end just there.
This game is
also find the studio's art director too. Nicholas.
Everything about this game just makes no sense.
Would join the studio during the
how is this game made, bro?
Online forums. The core development team of 6
it's like the stars aligned to make this damn game, because this game should not be made.
Driven by a cohesive vision of what they wanted the game to be.
Like, how is this possible?
Beginning, the teams spent the majority of 2020 building out the studio first, and then towards the end of the year, the game itself.
It's showing us link.
Everyone was on the same page here and had the same goals as each other. To make one of the best reimaginings of a classic JRPG that anybody will ever play.
Go to the game, bro. That Lune? Funky Lune.
By April 2021, Sandfall moved into a bigger office, and the core development team working on Expedition 33 started to expand. The team went from 6 employees to now more than 15 working on the game.
More than 15?
Comprised mostly of junior-level engineers who didn't really have any experience in making games before, but were just as ambitious as the rest of the studio. The once grassroots passion project was starting to evolve into something bigger. By mid-2021, they were putting the finishing touches on a newer, rebooted demo. Something small, but was
like, how does this game ever even get finished?
The original version of Expedition 33 was more Victorian, but these were all assets comprised of the Unreal Engine asset store, just as a quick way to rapidly create a simple prototype.
Yeah.
But as the studio's new art director joined, they shifted directions.
Speaking of assets, y'all see that?
The demo was meant to serve as a teaser for potential investors or as a foundation for a future Kickstarter campaign.
Oh, God.
In less than a year since forming the studio, the team began presenting their work to various publishers.
You gonna get in trouble? You don't even know what I was gonna say.
Especially given the team's resources. Towards the end of 2021, they would meet with a brand new publisher, Kepler Interactive. And for those who don't know Kepler Interactive, they are a small publisher founded in September of 2021. Kepler Interactive is co-owned by a group of independent game developers, and their primary initiative is to help fund smaller indie games like Sifu, for example, and allow teams to have full creative freedom over their projects. Right off the bat,
I remember we played that.
The development teams hit it off and quickly inked a deal to work together in order to ship Expedition 33. Sandfall would use the extra funding rounds by Kepler to shift development from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5. Additionally, Kepler would also open the door for more popular
I don't even remember which boss it was.
The
one that kept throwing the stupid shurikens.
A small team of 12 people would grow to 22 people working on Expedition 33. Kepler Interactive and Sandfall would announce their partnership together in March of 2023. Additionally, around the same time, Microsoft would also pick up Expedition 33 as a Day 1 Game Pass launch title. At this point, the game had financial backing, guaranteed exposure through Game Pass, successfully switched over to Unreal Engine 5, and greatly expanded their tiny development team, all within a year or two. while also simultaneously working on the actual game. With their new investments coming in, they were also able to upgrade their office with a full motion capture studio. And Kepler Interactive helped pull in a star-studded cast to help voice the main characters. The cast that Kepler was able to pull in is a bit wild. Gustav was played by none other than Charlie Cox, who you may know as Daredevil. Jennifer English played Miel, who was Shadowheart from Baldur's Gate 3. Ben Starr played Verso, and he was also in Final Fantasy 16. Andy Serkis from, well, you know who he is. And the list just goes on, with even more incredible talent. The game was becoming something much bigger than just a great game with excellent gameplay.
I don't want to replay it,
was also shaping up to be an incredible narrative experience that arguably could be up there with the best movies of all time. As a side note, on the movie side, Kepler Interactive was also able to secure a live-action film for the franchise too. It's too early to say how good that will be, but it is a fun fact. By the end of 2023, Sandfall Interactive would begin working on a debut trailer for Expedition 33.
Get people to come back
Since
and play
they had a partnership with Microsoft and were going to ship the game day one on Game Pass, they also had a spot.
You should see DMC sales. They spiked once that DMC anime came out.
This is where they chose to reveal their passion project turned masterpiece to the world.
Blazing Expedition 33 non-stop? Oh yes, for sure.
Sandfall Interactive would reveal the game to the world in June of 2024. And right off the bat, everybody was enthralled by the world that Sandfall had introduced.
Bro, the moment I saw that, I instantly signed up for the creator program
6 years in development, we would consider it to be stuck in development hell, or a case of too many cooks in the kitchen. However, with Sandfall Interactive and Expedition 33, a 6-year development cycle is actually a pretty remarkable turnaround.
Yeah, they started in 2020.
I know it sounds a bit crazy to say,
19,
but just looking at all of the accomplishments the studio made within the development cycle really helps highlight this point. The first 2 years involved just a couple of folks playing around in Unreal Engine to get a better feel of how the engine worked and creating a rapid prototype of Expedition 33. One that was a bit more Victorian and had utilized free assets from the Unreal Marketplace. The next 2 years were spent growing the team, with more talent, bringing in specialized directors, and starting the process of securing a publishing deal that would help bring the game into the limelight. And the final 2 years were spent iterating upon their prototypes and creating a game with a laser-focused vision. A vision that the entire team shared unilaterally.
Boss was so
Not
sick.
only was the team being built up during their 6-year development, but even their publisher was too. The CEO of Sandfall really hit it out of the park when he said something along the lines of, "You can accomplish so much when working with a smaller publisher team." Kepler and Sandfall both had double-digit employees, so the CEOs found it really easy to interface with each other.
With a lot more people,
the studio had
kind of lost
control. The relationship between the two companies was solely dedicated to crafting the best game they possibly could, with no middlemen trying to squeeze money out of the players. Just 2 months later, the team would put out a 6-minute gameplay reveal. This reveal would showcase all of the work that they had done thus far during development. At this point, the gameplay they showed off looked to be almost identical to the final version we would get a couple months later. So it's safe to say the work that remained at this point was bug fixing and minor UI changes. By the end of 2024, the team had finally finished the core development of the game, and it was time to celebrate. They knew that the game would be releasing next year, and they anxiously waited fans to get their hands on their project. And to no surprise to anybody who's played Expedition 33, they absolutely crushed it. Not only was it a critical success
for
reviewers, but also gamers.
Metacritic game right now?
Release,
the
game has been in the top 10 most popular games on Steam alone. In just 12 days, the game sold over 2 million copies.
I'm pretty sure it broke
what the actual player count is if you factor in Game Pass. The story of this game's development is just crazy. The teams absolutely deserve their flowers in creating such a great journey with such a small team. But don't just take it from me. Here's the founder of Larian Studios, the developers of Baldur's Gate 3, predicting the success of Clair Obscure Expedition 33.
So it turns out that not only will I be the one who will know as first which game wins tonight, but I actually also know which game is going to win next year. the year after, and the year after. Now, how do I know this? Well, an oracle told me. She said, change is coming. The oracle told me that the game of the year 2025 was going to be made by a studio who found the formula to make it up here on stage. It's stupidly simple, but somehow it keeps on getting lost. Studio made their game because they wanted to make a game that they wanted to play themselves. They created it because it hadn't been created before. They didn't make it to increase market share. They didn't make it to serve as a brand. They didn't have to meet arbitrary sales targets or fear being laid off if they didn't meet those targets. And furthermore, the people in charge forbade them from cramming the game with anything whose only purpose was to increase revenue and didn't serve the game design. They knew that if you put the game and the team first,
oh yeah, it's not all
time.
Will follow. All time is still.
They were driven by idealism and wanted players to have fun.
Ocarina of
and they
Time.
realized that if the developers didn't have fun,
with a 99, Jesus
any fun.
Christ.
They understood
Soul Calibur second with a 98.
That if they treated their developers and players well, those same developers and players would forgive them when things didn't go as planned.
Sheesh.
But above all, they cared about their game because
Mario Galaxy
they
got
loved
97.
games. It's really that simple, said the oracle.
No-hit DMC gameplay? Oh, I heard about that. That's hilarious.
C'est vraiment une expérience qui a été très importante pour moi. J'ai pleuré pendant 2 jours, j'ai rigolé, c'était formidable.
They cooked. I'm levitating. This music is fire. Levitating is crazy. You know, random song. Cloud artist made this banger. I mean, you gotta start somewhere.